How far do you think this Rick Pitino team can go in the tournament?
Well, defense, they have a defense that'll travel. That's the good part. Now, if they can get their scoring, I don't see any reason why they can't get to the Elite Eight and beyond with the way they play defense. It just really comes down to, can they make shots when they need to make shots in the tournament? And, that also includes free throws. Like last week against UConn, they played very well. They shot free throws well, and they shot, from outside well. And that, if they do that, you can see the difference. They can play you in a close game because their defense will carry them. But when they're scoring and playing defense, it's double-digit wins. I mean, double-digit deficits when they do that.
Jay Horowitz with a special edition, amazing conversation with the great Carl Banks. Before I begin this interview, this may be a tilted interview. I've been a Giant season ticket holder since 1958. So that being said, Carl Banks, two-time Super Bowl champ, Ring of Honor, All-Decades team in 1980, and since 2007, part of the Giants radio network. But before I begin, I want to talk about your other career, Carl, your clothing line. Since 1989,
G3 Sports.
800 colleges, NFL, baseball, hockey, and you have a big opening at the Big East tournament in March. You're going to unveil some the Beast of East shirts, Beast of East, tongue twister shirts, stuff.
Yes. So, Jay, thank you so much for having me on. And it is an amazing conversation because, what I am doing for the Big East tournament, I'm paying homage to the Big East when there were Beast of the Big East, and just paying homage to a period where both of us know when New York sports was extremely hot and St. John's was on fire. And that's when I really became that, Big East fan, because I had just come here from Michigan State. And, 2 years later, I'm in a Super Bowl. You guys are winning World Series in St. John's with Chris Mullin and Walter Berry and Mark Jackson were doing their thing. And it was a fun time. And so, I wanted to, now that the Big East is really back on the map with great coaching and great players across all these teams, I wanted to pay homage to that, and to really reintroduce my starter collection, which is, some of the more popular jackets in the starter collection was around the Georgetowns and the St. John's of the world. And so what I wanted to do is just have some conversations with some of the coaches, and then, highlight some of the players. And we're doing a roundtable discussion with some of the Big East legends during the Big East tournament at Macy's. So we're dropped the whole entire collection where all 11 Big East schools are represented, and there's a collection at Macy's that's dropping during the Big East tournament on the 10th. And
Carl, what kind of stuff
also,
is it? What kind of stuff are you doing there? I mean, in Macy's, is it
so
jackets?
it's the legendary starter jacket, which we know that it's a staple in all of sports. So we're doing the starter jacket, starter tees, fleece, and hats, all vintage, all from the vintage collection out of my vault and starter. So I just went back and looked at a period of time, 80s and 90s, where starter was really synonymous with sport, and especially Big East sports. And I was able to pull out of the archives all of the starter collection that was big during that time, and we're reintroducing it.
I became a St. John's fan because of Chris Mullin too. Chris was a big Met fan in the '80s. Him
Yeah,
and his brother Terrence used to call me for tickets all the time, and I got to know Louis a little bit. And what a great man! Did you know Louis at all, Carl?
I
For
got a
a
chance
second,
to meet. I did get a chance to meet him, and it's just a thrill. Like when you imagine that period of Big East basketball, when there was Coach Conosecca and the late John
John Thompson.
Thompson and Raleigh Massimino, and so many great coaches, and Jim Boeheim was part of the Big East then. You have some of the greatest coaches that ever coached college basketball in one conference, and that
Yeah,
was just incredible.
I mean, I know. What do you think of the Garden? I went into a couple of times St. John's game. I mean, the Garden's electric now. For Nick games, it was, but now it hasn't been like that in years and years and years for St. John's. I mean, 19,000 plus for all of their games now.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I think it's a tribute to the job that Ed Cole has done and Coach Patino, and really the fan base outreach and making St. John's fans and New York feel a part of this movement, because at the end of the day, St. John's is a blue collar school. Like they're in the neighborhood, right? And it's part of the fabric of New York, and so to really get New York to embrace it at this level is just phenomenal. And I think Ed has done a great job there.
Yeah. So in Macy's? Are you going to have like a round table? You have the coaches will be there, or how are you going to work that?
So we are dropping the collection, but within Macy's, we have we've partnered with the Big East Rewind, and that's Chuck Eversole, who played for Villanova. But they do a podcast called the Big East Rewind, where they get um, players and coaches from around the Big East legends, and they do these interviews. So I asked him if he would mind doing a live Big East Rewind, and we'll have guys like Rip Hamilton. We're currently negotiating with Allen Iverson to get him to be a part of it. So we'll have some Big East greats that'll do kind of a round table with Chuck and his crew, and they'll just chop it up about Big East basketball.
And then will they go on sale that when you're doing the roundtable that day, the 13th? I think the tournament starts on the
No,
12th.
the tournament starts on the 12th. Our collection is in store on the 10th, and so it'll be running. The product will be there throughout the Big East tournament until it sells out. The actual Big East Rewind podcast is going to be there for all 3 days of the Big East tournament. And we'll have legends of the Big East interviewing throughout, and it'll be, live.
And cool. After it's over, how would people, if they can't get to Macy's, how would they get your shirts and jackets?
Well, they're going to be, we're also at Lids. So it'll be at lids.com and then starter.com if it sells out, which I anticipate most of these schools will sell out of the product. They'll be able to get it online a couple weeks later at starter.com and at lids.com.
So can we talk Giants for a couple of minutes?
Please, let's.
But- so, all right, we got number 3 pick, Cam Ward, Shaduri Sanders, or move down. What do you think?
So we'll state the obvious and say that the Giants need a quarterback.
Right,
I
right.
think, I believe that they will sign a free agent quarterback or get a veteran quarterback. I think they have to have a quarterback on the roster heading into the draft. You can't go into the draft with no quarterback on the roster, because it makes you desperate, and you'll have to give up a whole bunch to get
Yeah.
one of these guys. If Ward or Sanders is available, you take one of those. If not, then you wait and you find another one later on in the draft. But I think you have to get a guy like a Jameis Winston or Sam Darnold to come in and try to stabilize and get you some wins in a hurry.
For me as a fan, got to get some credibility back. It's killing me. I've been to all the Super Bowls, whole spin, and it really
Yeah,
pains me when I hear the Giants being trash talk to the media and talk radio. 'Cause I've
yeah,
never booed once in my time. I just hope we can get back on track this year, not, whatever the expectations
yeah.
are. It's hard. It's a champion. It's got to be hard for you too, giving your life to the team for so long to see what's happened.
Sure. Yeah, Jay, it's unfortunate that the fandom is different now. And, because, and I'll be quite frank, because betting is involved in sports,
Right.
the attitudes and the fandom is not necessarily rooted in wins and losses. It becomes personal at times, and you can look on any given Sunday If a guy was playing fantasy football and the guy he chose that week did not perform, there are all kinds of crazy comments about these kids. But the bottom line is I think everybody wants the Giants to have success for whatever their reasons are.
Right.
I think the Giants have to get back to that, right? And so when someone says, well, you don't want to pay a 37-year-old $50 million, sure you do. If it's the going rate, you get what you pay
Yeah.
for. He's a proven winner. He was a missed assignment away from beating Philadelphia in the
Right.
playoffs. So, like, this is a guy who's a playoff caliber quarterback. And I think because, and this is not a knock on Giants fans, but I think they've been conditioned by the losing so much that they cannot really embrace optimistically a guy of Matthew Stafford's caliber, because it's always look for the negative instead of look for the positive. And again, they've been conditioned by all the losing. So I'm not criticizing them, but when I see people post, well, he's not worth the money, or I'll take him if you can get him for $10 million. No, that's not what you get
Yeah.
in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you want a high caliber player, if it's for 1 year, for 2 years, you got to go get him, because if he's available and he's market rate, you're not overpaying for him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're
So
paying market value.
I,
So,
I meant, yeah, sorry to cut you off. We took a minutes before. I watched the Super Bowl. I wasn't rooting against Saquon. I wasn't rooting for him. I was watching the game. I couldn't,
mhm,
I'm not, I just don't like the Eagles. My favorite memory of the Eagles with Deshaun Jackson a couple of ago was dancing around on the
yeah,
1 yard
uh,
line. That was awful, awful, awful,
yeah,
awful, awful,
yeah,
awful, awful.
yeah.
You know, you know,
Philadelphia they're our rival.
yes,
But you give them credit where they're due.
yeah,
They put together an amazing franchise, but I don't root for them either. I
yeah.
watch it. I can appreciate good football, and they play good football. Saquon is near and dear to me, and I didn't wish him failure, but I wasn't going to root for him to win the Super Bowl, but he did
Yeah,
it, and I'm happy for him.
God bless him. They're all trying to have a couple good pieces in place. I mean, Neighbors is legitimate, right? I mean, he's a legitimate
Yeah.
guy. And Tracy had some fumbles last year, but I mean, he showed some promise, right? As far as running back for you, did he?
Sure. Tyrone
Mm.
Tracy is going to be a phenomenal back for the Giants. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is just phenomenal. And he's the guy, if you had to have a poster child of what a winning mentality is, his face, Malik Neighbors' face would be on it, because he said it. He hates losing more than he likes winning.
Yeah.
So that's the guy you want. That's who's going to change your culture.
We let me talk quarterback a couple of minutes. Eli Manning, were you disappointed, or should we be as a Giant fan if it's showing in a poll? I was kind of didn't make the top 10, which kind of disappointed me a little bit. Does that make any difference, or still online? You
Well,
think?
I think Eli Manning is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he should have been in this year, considering it was kind of an odd year. They picked four guys, and if you're selected, you're worthy of Hall of Fame. So I would never discount any player that is selected to be in the Hall of Fame. I just thought that, if you could pick six players and they only selected four this year, I thought, Eli Manning should have been a part of this class.
Carl, how about your old quarterback, Phil Simms? He had the one great quarterback, 22 for 25 against Denver. He got hurt. You think if he had won the second Super Bowl, it would have made it easy. I mean, not being in the hole. I mean, and what do you think about his, and going down the road? Do you think it's over or not over for him?
Well, I don't think people appreciate Phil Simms um, the way that they should. And I don't know if there's a New York bias when it comes to putting, Giants in the Super Bowl or Jets in the Super Bowl. I mean, how long did it take for Marty to get in? It's just it's tough. I'm sorry, Joe Klecko. Um, Joe Klecko was a all pro at multiple positions, and it's almost like they forgot about him, for years, and he finally got in. So I don't know if there's a bias against New York players, and people will say no. But the other problem that we have now, Jay, is that the people who vote have never seen some of these kids play or some of these men play. So they have recency bias. And, I would encourage those people who vote to take a look. YouTube's available. If you were to run some of the analytics on those players compared to these players, you'd see that those players, like a Phil Simms, would fare so much better than some of the things that you're bloating these stats with now. So, and if Phil played in any other environment, if he played in a dome, he'd be a shoe-in Hall of Famer. The conditions in the Meadowlands are not great, and he played in some of the worst and was able to really succeed. So I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, sure.
You parallel with the Mets, Gil Hodges took 35 ballots to get in the Hall of Fame, and I found one thing: unless you have your advocates on a committee, it's hard. And finally, after 35 times, Gil Hodges got in. So hopefully, Phil will get in. There's one. I don't know if you noticed too. In '86, the Mets and Giants were tied together.
Yeah,
Playing the Redskins on Monday night when we
yep,
won
I
the
remember it well.
this Meadowlands went crazy, and
Yep,
my
I
good friend
remember it
Sterling
well.
Bennett. And what happened, right? We're looking at the stands, and the Mets
We
won
had
the
the
World Series.
jumbotron, and
Yeah,
the defense was on the field at the time too, and I just hear the crowd just go crazy, and the play hadn't been played yet, and we look up and we see the score, and it was just an amazing moment for us in
yeah,
'86, and for you guys as well.
yeah. It was great. So, get St. John's for a second. How far do you think they can go? Duke has their teams and other great teams. You know, great defense, great rebounding. How far do you think this Rick Pitino team can go in the tournament?
Well, defense, they have a defense that'll travel. That's the good part. Now, if they can get their scoring, I don't see any reason why they can't get to the Elite Eight and beyond with the way they play defense. It just really comes down to, can they make shots when they need to make shots in the tournament? And, that also includes free throws. Like last week against UConn, they played very well. They shot free throws well, and they shot, from outside well. And that, if they do that, you can see the difference. They can play you in a close game because their defense will carry them. But when they're scoring and playing defense, it's double digit wins. I mean, double
Yeah.
digit deficits when they do that.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, again, best of luck with your jackets. And tell me again, the people, how do they get the jackets for
Well,
when it goes?
it's the Beast plural with the Beast of the Big East collection, and it is going to be available at 310 at Macy's Herald Square and at Lids on 42nd Street. So everything is available during the Big East tournament. So fans of other schools, the Big East, we're going to have your school represented as well. That's why I'm here at Providence right now, spending some time with the coach and their players and shooting getting
Uh,
some footage of them wearing the
well,
product.
well, good luck with your project, Carl, and hopefully the Giants will come out well in the draft. And maybe I'll see you at the Garden next time St. John's plays.
I look forward to both.